What is the inner heart of Reiki? Turns out it's kindness. Enjoy our discussion on the Radiate Wellness podcast today.
Hello and welcome to the Radiate Wellness podcast with your host, metaphysician, Reiki master, and hypnotherapist, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week, we will discover teachings, tips, and tools to radiate your best life ever with practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate?
Before we get to this interview, I wanted to talk to you a minute about ways you can support this show. If you love our content, if you enjoy hearing from a variety of guests all over the world to tell you about topics that can improve your life and help you radiate the things that you want in life, such as kindness in this episode, well, then you'll want to support the show. There are many ways that you can support this show. The first and most obvious is wherever you're listening now, please subscribe, like, or follow this podcast, the Radiate Wellness Podcast. We're on all of the platforms, including YouTube. So wherever you're listening now, please just click that subscribe, like, or follow button so that you're notified when we've got new guests coming out. Another thing that you can do to support the show is to share this podcast. Tell your friends, hey, I listened to this really great guest on the Radiate Wellness Podcast today. I think you're going to enjoy it. Share that with your friend, your neighbor, your colleague, your family. Tell them about the great content that you're hearing here. Now, another thing that you can do to support the show, please, is to rate and review. A 5-star rating goes a long way. A little blurb saying, hey, this is a great podcast. I think you'll like it. It doesn't take much, but please rate and review the podcast as well. It seems simple, and maybe it is, but it helps others find us. And when others find us, they're going to like, rate, and review. And it just boosts us in the algorithm so that we get more and more amazing guests. And yet another way, that you can support this show is by going to radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast. Now, at radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast, you can listen to the podcast. Of course, you can see a picture of the person that I'm talking to. If you're only looking at the audio, you can at least see the picture. And then you can read about them with live links and learn more about them. But the other thing is, you can learn how to donate and support the show in a very real way. So there is a link that says support the show, and this goes right to our PayPal donation page. Now, I don't ask very often, but this show costs us money to produce. It does. It costs me out of my pocket to produce this show. Anything that you can donate is greatly appreciated and goes right to those costs. So I would appreciate anything that you can offer. And that, again, is radiatewellnesscommunity.com/podcast, and click on the support the show button. And all of that goes right to our editor and right to our producers. So anyway, today, Radiate Wellness Podcast, we radiate kindness with my guest, Frans Stiene. Frans has been a significant influence on global research into the Reiki system since the early 2000s. His practical understanding of the Japanese influences on the system has allowed students around the world to connect deeply with this practice. Frans is a co-founder of the International House of Reiki and Shibumi International Reiki Association with Bronwen Logan. He has also co-authored with her the critically acclaimed books, the Reiki Sourcebook, the Japanese Art of Reiki, A-Z of Reiki Pocketbook, Reiki Techniques Card Deck, and Your Reiki Treatment. His own books are The Inner Heart of Reiki and Reiki Insights. So please join me in welcoming Frans here to discuss the beautiful, beautiful practice of Reiki. Welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast, where today we radiate kindness with Frans Stiene. All right. Hello, Frans. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. You're really super excited about it.
Oh, that's wonderful. So I've had you on before, actually, to talk about the Inner Heart of Reiki, but you've got a new edition out now.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm so excited to see the new edition, brand new cover, new intro, little different things here and there. Also, I think it's great because after the Inner Heart of Reiki, I published Reiki Insight and then The Way of Reiki. And then sometimes people first pick up Reiki Insights or The Way of Reiki, and then they forget about the Inner Heart of Reiki. So it's now nice to actually come with a new edition, new cover, and the cover is very similar as to The Way of Reiki. So I think hopefully one day we can make like a box set or something.
Oh, that would be nice. Yes. How many books on Reiki do you have now?
I co-wrote 4, and by myself I wrote 3.
Oh, my goodness. So you know quite a bit about Reiki.
I hope so. I hope so.
So I noticed the Japanese calligraphy behind you. Can you tell us what that is?
Yeah, within the system of Reiki, we have the Reiki precepts. And in a simple way for today, do not anger, do not worry, be grateful, be true to your way and your being, and show kindness to yourself and others, or show compassion to yourself and others. There's different way of translating them. And the concept of today, I think, is so beautiful because often we are so caught up in what happened yesterday or 10 years ago. And then often, specifically now, we're so caught up in what is going to happen in the future that actually we miss out today. And when we miss out today, this is the moment we're living. So actually, the whole precepts are really saying, try as much as possible to be in the present moment.
Agreed. Be in the present because that's where our source of power is.
Absolutely.
For those who might have a passing knowledge of Reiki or some vague idea of what it is, can you tell our audience more about it?
Yeah, I think nowadays when people talk about Reiki, we think about hands-on healing, but I always actually come from the foundation of the precepts because we cannot always do hands-on healing. Like today I was walking around in town. I cannot go like this to everybody. I'll probably get arrested or hit on the head. And I like what you were saying already, radiate. We can radiate kindness. And so for me, actually, there's many pointers within the system of Reiki about radiating light or kindness instead of anger and worry and frustration, radiate being grateful, and radiate it also. One of the precepts is be true to your way and your being. So we all radiate in a different way depending on our way, but that radiation of our being is our interconnected luminosity. And I really like that. So for me, Reiki is actually finding a way in our life today that today we can lead a life of less anger, less worry, being grateful, being true to our way and our being, and being compassionate to ourselves and others. And that in itself already triggers a tremendous amount of energy, what we can use for helping ourselves and also helping other people.
Yes. Now, how did you find Reiki?
Oh, that's a good question. I've been teaching now for over 25 years. And at one point in my life, I was not doing so well emotionally and physically. Since I was probably 15, I had a lot of back problems. So they put me into plaster, etc., etc. And they said, okay, we cannot do that much. Just keep taking these nice, yummy painkillers and get physiotherapy. And that's about it. And when you grow older, it will get worse. So it did. So I remember in my late 20s, I would pick up something light from the floor, maybe even just some fluff. And then I could not get up and I walked around like an old person. I had to take these painkillers. And then, of course, you know, when you're young also, then you think maybe I should drink. With these painkillers, these are crazy ideas, of course. And so at one point I was very low. And at that time I was traveling with my then partner in India. And so I came across different healers, different ideas, different philosophies. And one day I bought a book about Reiki and I got like, well, let me try this, and did some hands-on healing on myself. I got like, this is something I can relate to. And then we found a Reiki teacher in Nepal, Kathmandu, an English guy. And then actually we opened up a Reiki center in Darjeeling in the Himalaya for a year, and mainly to actually do volunteer treatments on the local community. And for me, that was such a big change in my own mind, body, giving up drinking, etc. I'm now almost 60 and I'm actually feel stronger physically and mentally than I was in my late 20s.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. I think we're about the same age and you carry your age very well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you too.
So how did you know Reiki was the practice that you wanted to do?
Well, that's a good one. I think also because it was one of the first practices I started to do. And although we were living in Darjeeling, there was a lot of Tibetan Buddhists around. And then I became actually interested in the origin of the system of Reiki because where I lived in Darjeeling, around that at that time, there were lots of local healers and they were either Nepali or Tibetan, so Hindu or Tibetan Buddhism or other kind of shamanic practices. And when I talked to these healers, their main thing was their own personal development. And in the system of Reiki, how I was learned at that time was just do hands-on healing, fall asleep, and that's about it. And then I remember one day I met this very young guy. He was 21, and we were staying in the same kind of local area, and we became friends. And he was a tulku, a reincarnated Tibetan Lama. And he said, "What do you do?" I do Reiki, some hands-on healing. And he said, "Oh, like this." And when he did like this, holy moly, it was just so amazing. And I go, I want what he has. But then it turned out he just came out of a meditation retreat for 3 years with his teacher. And so then I wanted to know where the system of Reiki really came from. So in 2001, I went to Japan for the first time and started to train with Japanese teachers. And indeed, there was lots of meditation practices traditionally within the system of Reiki I discovered. And so that became really my foundation.
That's incredible. So what a mystical experience.
Yeah, I must say I've had some really great experiences, but also the journey. I trained also for 12 years with a Taoist teacher, and she was brought up in China by her grandmother at the age of 3 in Taoism. And in their tradition, they also did hands-on healing. And she really helped me to understand. And then I started to actually train with a Japanese priest in a little monastery. And that was even more mind-blowing.
That
A little bit difficult. It's super difficult. I go there, but I don't always go there like, oh, let me go there because this is going to be fun. It's pretty challenging. You practice from like, you wake up 4 a.m. and you go to bed at midnight and you keep practicing all day. They really push you. But I must say that really has changed my perception of the system of Reiki and also the perception of myself. And this is also what really the Inner Heart of Reiki kind of came about to what is really the inner heart of the system of Reiki beyond just hands-on healing.
Yes, and this is a new enhanced edition. Is there anything different about it besides the cover and the introduction and everything?
Not a lot. I could have done, of course, that. But of course, we have also Reiki Inside and the Way of Reiki. And maybe one day I will write another book. I'm a strange writer, maybe. I'm not sure. Not so long ago, I had an interview with different writers. And I noticed everybody had their own technique. And for me, it's a little bit, it needs to percolate in my head. And then, like, okay, now it really needs to come out. And then I write. But if I go like, now I need to write something, I'm not so good at it. So it needs to kind of sit there for a while and then suddenly it just goes boom.
Oh, yeah, I totally understand what you mean by that. That it needs to percolate and just kind of simmer for a bit until everything comes together. So why did you decide to write about Reiki? Is this in conjunction with your teaching?
Well, I think particularly my own books, the 3 books I mentioned, that was really, I was thinking about something for particularly with the Inner Heart of Reiki about the precepts. And I thought, okay, maybe to teach this, I need to write it down how I can actually teach it in a very clear, simple, direct way. And one of these things I find very interesting is these Zen masters in Japan, for example. They're so clear, they're so direct and simple. And so when I started to write this down, it just kept flowing and flowing and flowing. And I was like, shit, this is a book.
It is, yeah.
And then I thought, okay, now I understand it better, and then maybe I need to publish this. So I sent it to the publisher and I said, Frans, this is great. Let's publish it. And so actually it was written already when I sent it to the publisher. So I didn't say, I have an idea. I wrote the whole thing first and then say, okay, this is already completely complete. Do you want to have it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Books is very good that way, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're wonderful. So how did it come about that you started teaching? You know, just learning it is one thing, but teaching it is a completely different animal, in my opinion.
Oh, I agree. I agree completely. And well, I thought I started work when I was 17 and I did the office job. And then I was a bit of a party animal for a long time with the pain in my back, etc. And then when I started to feel better, I thought, okay, if I can do it, then I think everybody can do it, because I never believed in these kind of things. I was always super skeptical about it. It just a lot of it wasn't even on my radar. And when I started to feel more that inner joy, that inner happiness, less anger, less worry, radiating, I think, for myself more this kindness, I got like, wow, what if we all do this? Wouldn't the world be a better way? And slowly, when I started to teach, I saw how that ripple effect was so wonderful. But yeah, I think it's a very different ball game. I see some people who write and then they think I'm going to teach, and then they say, oh, actually, this is really difficult. Or they find it very difficult to deal with their students, for example. Because for me, it's not just teaching. You come in contact with your students, and some come there because they feel unhappy, or they maybe have a disease, or maybe they're dying, or their relationship broke up. So there's a lot of pain, a lot of sadness, a lot of discomfort. And if you don't know how to deal with this, then it becomes really difficult.
Yes, I agree. Which kind of brings me up to my next point. The subtitle of your book is Rediscovering Your True Self. So when you talk about, you know, how we all carry this pain, et cetera, with us, how can Reiki help us rediscover our true self?
Yeah, so if we look at the system of Reiki, it has like the precepts, and then we have hands-on healing, but also very specific meditation practices. We have in Reiki 2 mantras and symbols, and then something what is now called attunement or initiation. In Japan, traditionally was called Reiju. And the whole system in reality, and again, very simply, we can see this at the precepts. So for example, if I'm angry the whole day, I feel very tired at the end of the day. If I'm worried the whole day, I feel very tired. So anger and worry in the precepts depletes me. And so then, of course, I feel exhausted, I feel tired, I might get a burnout. Then that, of course, if I deplete my energy, then that is going to have an effect somewhere in my physical body. So then, of course, this keeps rolling and rolling and rolling until one day maybe we find it very difficult to get out of bed. But if we slowly soften that grip on our anger and our worry and our fear and be more grateful for even just waking up in the morning. I mean, we don't know, right? We think we live for a long time, but maybe we don't wake up. So even just waking up in the morning and be grateful for the little things, then slowly we start to be more true to our way in our being. And this is then we come to this, Mikosui describes it as an inner great bright light, an inner luminosity. And I live here in an apartment building with really big windows. So today it's a little bit cloudy and the sun here and there comes through. But most of the time we focus on our clouds, right? We focus on our anger, our frustration, our sadness, often what happened in the past. But beyond that, we also have the bright sun, right? And the bright sun is always shining. No matter how many clouds I have, the quality of the sun doesn't change. So it's only my perception what has changed. So even if it's super cloudy, then we say, oh, the sun is not there, but that's not really true, right? And then maybe if the clouds disperse a little bit, we say, oh, it's becoming more sunnier, but that's not true either because no one increased the volume of the sun. And even if it's dark at night, the sun is still shining. No one turned off the sun. So it is kind of shifting our perception to, instead of every day or today focusing on poor me, I'm unhappy, I'd like this, like that, etc. On the clouds, we start to shift the perception to this more spaciousness, this more brightness, what exists already.
I love that. Yes, if it's cloudy, it's not any less sunny. It's just that it's covered up. It's not clear,
Absolutely.
right? Absolutely. I love that analogy. That's fantastic. Now, the thing I wanted to ask you about is that every Reiki master and practitioner that I know practices a bit differently. And you had mentioned, you kind of alluded to this as well. Is there any wrong way to practice Reiki?
That is a good question. Well, I mean, like often sometimes we say if all the roads lead to the mountaintop, but I think there are also roads what go around the mountain or go halfway to the mountain. And then we think, oh, this is pretty good. I go back down the mountain. I've seen it all. And so for me, actually, this is why no matter if we practice a system of Reiki or yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong or whatever, that we really have to make sure that we're not on the road around the mountain and that when we're halfway, we don't really give up. There's a Zen saying, and it's the Zen teacher asked the student, what if you climb a 30-meter pole? I'm not sure foot, how much that is, like say a 30-meter pole. What do you do? And then the student needs to give an answer. And some people go, you keep holding on. But if you keep holding on, you probably fall down. Or you go down, you climb down again. And the correct answer is you keep climbing, even that there is no pole. You keep practicing, because ultimately there are still so many triggers in our life, particularly say that today my life is pretty well. And I'm like, I don't have much anger. I don't have much worry. And then suddenly a family member dies, or suddenly you're being fired, or suddenly you get sick. Then how do we deal with this? But if we've given up, then we don't have that solid foundation to support us in getting old or dying. And one thing we have for certain that, we get old, and then, of course, we all die. And then ultimately, I see this, my mom is now 88. She was always super healthy, but now when she's getting older, she gets more pain, discomfort, she might fall over. So we cannot say, I'm going to heal myself of all my physical issues. I think this is impossible. However, we can help ourselves that when we do fall over, or when we do get these physical issues, or when we do grow old, and when we do die, then can we do this without anger, without worry, being grateful, being true to our inner being, and with kindness?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, absolutely. And that's wonderful that your mom is now 88 years old. And
yeah, super cute. She still is by herself. And what is also very interesting, because she never says, Frans, can you do some hands-on healing on me? That's not her thing, right? But when I go there, I try as much as possible to radiate kindness. And that in itself already, I see after I've been there an hour, she is smiling, she's more open, she feels better. And I'm not saying, I'm doing Reiki, etc., etc. No, I'm as much as possible being that kindness space.
You're living Reiki.
Yes, I think that's the most important, like living yoga or living Tai Chi or living whatever we practice.
And I think your point about radiating kindness is very apt, because when we live these precepts, these principles, that does show to others, and our energy affects others.
Absolutely. I mean, in fact, the other day, if I'm not teaching, I often on a teaching tour, like I do 3 weeks teaching tours. And then if I come home, I take it a little bit easier, maybe do an interview like this or some online sessions. And then I like to go and have coffee in the morning. So I'm sitting there and I go to this place a lot. And then this woman comes in with this little dog, like a little pug. And it's pretty heavy. And it kind of hops on my lap and it sits there like this. And this lady goes, are you okay? I said, yeah, it doesn't matter. So I'm sitting there with this puggy. And then someone I know vaguely gets a coffee. Oh, but they know my name. Frans, can I come and sit next to you? I said, yeah. And we chat a little bit. And then person leaves and another person enters the cafe and said, oh, can I come and sit next to you? And we chat a little bit. Okay. And then this woman with the pug said, is this always happening to you?
You're popular.
And I go like, yeah, but if we radiate this kindness, then automatically also we can be a support for people. They can tell their story. If I'm sitting there like, don't talk to me, then automatically there's no ripple effect. But if I can radiate kindness, they might go just for 10 minutes while I had my coffee. I had a nice conversation with someone. I maybe could unload my stuff. And then I feel a little bit lighter when I walk out of the cafe. Then already I think we're practicing Reiki in our daily life.
Yes, I agree. When people leave better than when they approached us, why not? I think that's
Absolutely. I think this is a wonderful, if they leave better after they have approached us and we communicated with each other. I think that for me is being a yogi or a yogini or being Reiki or being kind. And that in itself, I think, is a very powerful healing because, again, we cannot always put hands on each other, right?
It's true. Exactly. But even at a distance, right? Because we do distance Reiki
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we're not actually touching people, but we do radiate still our kindness and our energy and our well-being. And it's noticeable, it's palpable to other
Yeah,
people.
absolutely.
Some Reiki practitioners use crystals and some use sound and incense and different things. But as long as we've got that kindness, those precepts, do not worry, do not anger, then I think we're giving and receiving benefit of it. So
Absolutely.
for the practitioners, how do they use your book, The Inner Heart of Reiki?
Well, for me, because of course, there's exercises in it, but I think we learn in 3 different ways, right? Or they need to be combined. If I read something or watch a video, but because we talk about the inner heart of Reiki, that when we read something, then we have the intellectual understanding. And then that is not enough. Then we have to contemplate it, right? So maybe we read one chapter, then we sit down, we contemplate it. Oh, how does that relate to my life? How does that relate to my practice when I do hands-on healing, or how does it relate to myself as a teacher? Then after we've contemplated, then we need to actually engage with the practices. So we need to do hands-on healing on ourselves. We need to perform the meditation practices. We need to engage with the precepts. What does it mean not to be angry? What does it mean not to be worried? What does it mean to be grateful? Like often we think I'm being grateful just for the nice things in life, but maybe actually the shitty things, what happens in our life, we actually learn a lot from. So maybe we also should be grateful from them. So therefore we have these 3. So intellectual, reading, engaging and thinking about what we've read. Does it make sense or is it nonsense? And then we have to sit on our butt and do the practice. And then actually by doing this, and this is, I think, after the inner heart of Reiki, rediscovering our true self or that inner luminosity, what radiates out, I've seen and heard from a lot of existing Reiki practitioners and teachers, and they say, this is always what I experience, but my teacher never told me this, or I could not read anything about it, or I can really feel it within myself. And now finally I have a structure of how to relate to this, or actually maybe a simple language to explain it to people around me or to my students.
Right. So are you currently taking students?
Yeah, I was just teaching in Italy and the UK. We'll be teaching next month in Berlin, in Germany, and then in Australia, and then back to England again, and of course in Holland, where I live. So yeah, I've always liked traveling. So this is great where I can combine teaching Reiki and traveling. And I think the other thing for me, what I really love is actually creating community, so that the community also can radiate this kindness. So when we have like-minded people coming together, they can learn from each other, little groups here and there. And this is so wonderful.
Yeah. So with all the traveling and the classes all over in different countries, how many languages do you speak?
I don't speak that many because, for example, teaching in Italy, I work with a translator, but the translator is a Reiki teacher, so then they understand it as well. So I do the same when I teach in France, for example. But yeah, I speak Dutch, a little bit of German, but my German is a little bit too rusty when I'm teaching. So then I also work with a German translator, or sometimes I just say just the classes in English.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So when you learned in Nepal and Tibet and everything, did you learn it also in English with a translator?
When I was living in India and Nepal, these were 3 English teachers. And with my teacher in Japan, he speaks English, but it's not super good. My Japanese is terrible. So then we actually sometimes use a translating program. But his way is really a little bit intellectual. And then the most thing is that you sit on your butt. So, for example, the last time I was there with him, I was for 10 days. Every day we wake up at 4. At 5, we start practicing, and then it's full on practice for 3 hours long. It's like, sometimes I describe it, if I would practice by myself, I'm kind of just a normal little train with practice, but he's like one of those.
Oh, bullet train.
Bullet train, he's like, so you practice for 3 hours, then you have a little breakfast, then you do a little bit of stretching, and then we sit down again, then we continue the whole thing till about midnight. And so there's a lot of physical practice so that actually you gain that physical direct experience of your inner luminosity, that you realize I am actually, of course, shit happens. We cannot deny this, but we actually realize that luminosity within myself is so much stronger in a way than the shadows. For example, if I put all the lights on here in my room, then automatically the shadows have no chance. They automatically disappear, right? It's not a fight between shadow and light. In fact, in that luminosity, if we have really huge stadium lights and we switch them on, then there's no shadow to be found, right? So automatically, the more we realize this inner spaciousness or this inner light, and sometimes, therefore, in a lot of these traditions, they use spaciousness. And I often give an example like this. Here's a little Japanese singing bowl. And if we feel very narrow and I stick this in it and this, and then maybe my coaster, then it's full and I feel quickly overwhelmed. But if I realize that my essence is actually spaciousness, because if I look at and investigate my mind, I cannot find the beginning and end of the mind. It's impossible. So then if we observe these 3 elements from the spaciousness of the universe, for example, then they don't change. However, they look super, super tiny from that perspective of the universe. So now they don't look that overwhelming. They don't give me so much stress. They don't take my power away, etc. I can absorb them.
Love that. Love that. All right. So let me ask you again about the book. Who did you write it for?
I think ultimately for Reiki practitioners and Reiki teachers, but I think even I have given it to people who have no idea about the system of Reiki, and even they, because for me also the really focus is the Reiki precepts, right? And everybody can understand, even if you talk to a 12-year-old, what it means not to be angry. We don't need specifically to be a Reiki practitioner or teacher to understand that. And so ultimately it's accessible for everybody. I've heard from people who picked it up, who had no idea about Reiki, and then they say, oh, this has really helped me. Where can I do a Reiki class?
Oh, and do you see clients as well?
Yes, I still do see clients. I still love doing hands-on healing. I don't know. I just find this, when I do hands-on healing on people, I find this interconnectedness so beautiful that, your client is on the massage table or whatever you call it, and you perform hands-on healing. And when we realize that it's not just me touching the person, but ultimately that person is touching you as well. There is an interconnectedness taking place. It's like if I touch the wall here, then we say Frans is touching the wall, but there's only one side because the wall at the same time is also touching me. So then after I do one treatment, sometimes I think I have to pay my client because I feel so good afterwards.
Exactly. One might think that you're waking up at 4:00 in the morning and you're practicing Reiki pretty much until you go to bed at midnight. That would be exhausting. And while it can be when you're welcoming different people, and I'm speaking from my experience only, we're welcoming different people, and there's some certain times people will exhaust one. But when we're flowing Reiki, we're getting Reiki.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Back. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is why if we practice hands-on healing on other people in the correct way, like being in that interconnected space, realizing that we both the receiver and the giver, then you can do 10 hands-on healing sessions on people. And at the end, maybe your physical body, because you've been standing for a long time, feels a bit tired, but your mind and energy feel free and so flowing and so open and caring and that kindness. And I think, again, if we can practice, say I do 6 treatments a day like this, then that state of mind, what I have then touched upon again, I can then easily take with me in my daily life.
Exactly.
So I see hands-on healing on other people, if we do it in a correct way, actually a practice for my daily life.
Yes. I call it being tired and wired.
Yeah, that's
Buzzing.
yeah.
And you have a website. Would you like to tell us your website?
Yeah, ihreiki.com. So IH stands for the International House of Reiki. You find I still love writing. So even I think last week I wrote 3 blogs. So I think there's about 1,000 different blogs on the website. You can read all about different things, also about upcoming courses or online events. I like also, particularly when I'm teaching in person, then for the people who've been doing these classes to give follow-up support, because we can say, oh, I do a class and then bye, I don't want to see you again. For me, that doesn't feel right. As a teacher, I think it's a responsibility that we give follow-up support so that we all grow and we all hold hands together. So yeah, you can also find a lot about that on the website.
There are also teachers in many different countries that are listed on your website.
Yes.
Yes. And again, the IH stands for?
International House.
International House of Reiki, yes. So much information there about Reiki and Reiki teachers and blogs and professional development and all types of information. And where can we find your book?
Should be on, hopefully, in a lot of good bookstores and online, of course. You can buy it on different online platforms.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we've talked about a lot of things. Is there anything that we've not discussed that you think is important for our audience to know?
Oh, we could talk for hours, I think.
Oh,
I think the most important, like for me, no matter what style of Reiki you practice, or if you practice yoga or Tai Chi or whatever, really, I think for me, this is really the core of any kind of spiritual practice, is just radiate this kindness. It's so underrated. I think sometimes we make a lot of these spiritual practices very difficult, right? And it needs to be full of difficult things. But actually, I think ultimately it's super simple. I see this with my teachers, my Taoist teacher, or some of the Tibetan teachers I've been working with, my Japanese teachers. When they walk into town, they just radiate this kindness, and it's so powerful. My teacher in Japan, he lives in this tiny little monastery. It's super tiny. And so one day he sends me out with a broom. I'm in this kind of Japanese little costume, and it's in a small little village. And on the street there is all these kids, like they go to school. And so he said, Frans, here's the broom, those traditional brooms, and go and sweep the street. So I'm just sweeping, but I know he's looking. And then later on, he gives me a teaching, and he said, I was looking to see, because a lot of the kids there, they haven't seen a Westerner, right? And particularly a tall one wearing this Japanese costume, what is a little bit too small because I'm too tall, sweeping the street. And he said, you didn't ignore them. You actually engaged with them. You were kind to them. You made them laugh. He said, this is practice. This is really what we should be doing. And for me, these little things is so important. I can be, I'm a Reiki teacher and just ignore the kids and be sweeping the street and not engage with them, not make them laugh, not being playful. But then I think we have not the right idea about a spiritual practice. A spiritual practice is radiating kindness.
agreed. All right. Well, thank you so much, Frans, for being on the Radiate Wellness podcast to radiate kindness today. And I hope everybody will pick up a copy of the book, which is Inner Heart of Reiki, the new edition, which I think could be helpful for anybody who's on their Reiki journey, practicing Reiki master, Reiki teacher, anyone who's just interested or curious even about that. So thank you again, Frans, for joining me today.
Thank you. And yes, good luck with your show.
Thank you. Don't know what to watch next? Decisions. Well, we've got some suggestions. You can click this little video here and watch that. It's something that we think you're going to like. If you like the last one, you're going to like that one too. You can also click on the subscribe button. And if you do that, then you'll get notifications whenever we have a new video up. Win-win, right?